What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Best Show Ever podcast, the podcast about the best shows that people have ever seen in their lives. I'm your host, Cam Hurt, and welcome to week 2 of the podcast. We have got the pageantry and excitement of week 1 behind us. We are in the thick of it now, and we're in a very comedy-centric week on the podcast. And this episode is with a comedian who I cannot wait to meet in real life, but truly is one of my favorite comedians online, Max Higgins. You might know Max a little bit from his Phish content. If you're a Phish fan, there's been a couple clips that have made circulation within the Phish world of Max's jokes, but Max is a hilarious comedian that talks about way more than Phish, I promise you. He's been running shows out of the Vermont Comedy Club for a while now. He did a late night show where he's like a late night host live. We also have his one-man show that's coming up on the Edinburgh Fringe, which is just fucking sick. If you're a comedian, you have either tried to get into that festival or performed at that festival. It, Huge deal at the end of August here. The one-man show is called the World Class Underdog. And if you're in Montreal at the end of July, on July 24th, Max is going to be playing in Montreal, doing that show. It's a free show. I don't know how many listeners we have in Canada, but shit, Max is going to be up there. So if you love this episode, go see Max live. If you have the opportunity on the East Coast at some point, go see Max live and make me super jealous because I haven't had the chance yet. We talk about comedy in this episode. I'm not going to lie. We get into the nitty gritty of two comedians and how they think about stuff. We, of course, go over Max's favorite shows, which include Phish shows, of course. But it's great I love having comedians on the show because I know I can say some really dumb bits that might not get picked up otherwise. Not to say that people won't get them. There's some bits you can't just throw out to a regular guest, but when I know I've got a comedian on the podcast, I feel like I'm able to be super comfy, and Max is just a great guest for that. And so we have a great chat. He's doing great stuff in the comedy space right now and working super hard in that way. So check him out. It's Max Headgear, at Max Headgear. And Headgear is actually a band that Max is in as well. I found out recently. It's a talented guy that I'm talking to here. So that's enough intro out of me. Sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation that I had with Max. But first, here's a little bit of music from a guest that you will hear later on this season, Cal Kehoe. But like when I meet a new person, like if I meet if I'm starting like a new job or something and I'm like sitting next to someone all day, like one of the first questions I'm gonna ask is like, do you see any concerts? Are you going to any concerts? Have you seen a concert that's good?
Right. I'm getting a baseline on what people are up to, regardless of the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a very good read on whoever that person is. Like if they're
Right.
like, oh, I like everything, you're like, got it.
Got it. And I think it's weirder when they are into the same music as me because now I actually have so much information about them that I don't know them at all. I'm like, I know everything you did this summer.
It's like, oh no, you like Phish? Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I know so much
Ooh.
about your life. Like you drove to Albany last
Yeah.
year. Like I know what you were doing in August last year.
And I know what you're looking forward to.
And I know what you're looking forward to. Like I'm like, oh, in 2 weeks you're about to be stoked.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, no, I feel like I don't know. It's very hard to get a read on people. It's very like even people who are like, I'm very good at getting a read on a person right away. Like I still feel like the barometer is like, what is your music and like what do you do for fun?
Right.
But like that is the question that gets like the hiring manager when they bring in the new like group of people. They're like, and what do you guys do for fun? Like,
Right. I'm like, are you supposed to lie? That question I actually don't know. I'm like,
you
am I
are.
supposed to tell you're supposed to lie? Right. Right.
You are
I'm like,
supposed to lie.
yeah, I'm not supposed to thank you because part of me is like, no, they want to know. That's my problem. I'm like, no, people really want to know. They don't. They don't.
They want you to be yourself Kinda.
Yes,
Oh,
be yourself enough. I'm like, "Oh, okay, got it, got it, got it." I'm like, I'm not under the impression that I know how to read people. Like, I think I do. I'm like, "I got it." It's like, I don't.
I don't either. I'm like, they seem great.
I'm like, I'll proceed this way, I guess. Like, I'll still ask about all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know if this is what you guys wanted out of a conversation, but this is what I think's going on.
This feels pretty good.
No, I'm like, this is cool. Do you have any plans to hit any shows this summer? You?
I'm going back home to Wisconsin to see Phish at Alpine.
Ooh, that's cool.
And that's like the date, like everyone who I talk to is like for the most part on the East Coast.
Mhm.
And they'll be like, what dates are you hitting? And I'm like, Wisconsin. They're like, okay.
They're
And
like,
anything
"Alright."
else that I might be going to? Because I'm definitely not going to that. Like, it's like,
I
I,
know. Yeah, that's same over here. I actually don't know yet. I don't have any solid plans, but I'm open to, like, something falling together. Originally, I was gonna do Mansfield, but I got a gig on the same day in Boston, so I was like, "Well." So it is interesting to be like, "Sorry, guys, I have to do my own show," is something I would have never thought, which is really funny to me.
doesn't that suck? Now you're like doing what you'd like to be doing, but you don't get to do what you'd like to be doing.
No, it's cool because I'm like, that's what they were doing when they were, like, coming up. They were like, "Sorry, I can't go to whatever show I have to play. I'm in a band called Phish," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to miss. Like I was just talking to comedian Mike Fanoia about missing the
Nice.
Fish sphere, and he saw Fish in the 90s and all that stuff. He's like, but I had sweet ass gigs in Connecticut, so I
Yeah,
had to
no, it's like
do
I
that.
had gigs. I think if I have to miss a show, I want it to be because I have gigs. Like, that's the only sentence I wanna say if I have
Yeah,
to miss a show.
right. You don't want to be like, there's a work retreat, and if I don't go, I'm fired. Or
Yeah, I would never say that. Like, if I said that, I'm never gonna say that.
yeah,
I'm never if
exactly.
that's what's happening, something needs to change.
It's the job, and you need to
Yeah.
quit.
I'm like, if that's not how simply never if you ever hear me say that, intervention.
Inter-
Like,
Intervention,
immediate.
and I'll be the one to call it. Unfortunately, it
No one
sucks.
unfortunately, the system of accountability is that you will have to make that call.
I'm in the tie dye. I'm like, hey, what's
You're
up?
like, "Hey, actually, Max really did make a promise to culture."
Yeah, and Max, you can keep the suit on for your late night show, but you're gonna be doing the late night show. You're
Yes.
not gonna you're not
No,
gonna be
I will
doing
be the thing is I would love to I always thought it was funny the guys who showed up to New Year's wearing the suit, like, it didn't appeal to me, but now that I have suits, I sort of get it, but I think it would be so hot in there, like, it
yeah.
would be a nightmare, but I understand that vibe a little bit, like, if you can pull it off, I do think that is cool.
I think it's cool. I think it's a funny vibe too, but it is like a little like, isn't this hilarious? And then you're like halfway through the first set, like, this is not hilarious, and I'm
Yes,
ruining this suit.
if you had a cha I'm ruining if you had a change, then I would be like, "That's fun."
Yeah, into like a jazzier suit, like a little more
Yes.
breathable, jazzier suit.
I mean, I've certainly seen, like, a full sequin suit at a Phish show,
Yeah,
no question.
yeah,
They've got, like, air pockets, I'm sure.
yeah, and also little pockets
Yes, of
throughout.
many kinds for many things.
Exactly. Are you gonna do Mondegreen? Are you gonna be at that?
No, no, I'm not gonna be at that. I think I got
You're t- you're touring
intimidated.
Europe.
I'm touring well, what is that's August? I have stuff there's stuff going on. There's gigs.
You have gigs. You're playing the Hollywood Bowl. You can't.
I'm playing no, unfortunately, I'm playing the Hollywood Bowl, so I was like, I would love to, but I cannot, unfortunately."
Damn it.
Ah, shoot. I tried to go to Curve and, you know, so we can't say I didn't try.
So that's why you're like, I can't do it again.
Well, and I did, Magnaball. I read it and I was like, this I wasn't moved. I was like, I'm not moved by the spirit to go.
Okay. I'm not called.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm not being called to Delaware. I'm being called to gigs this time.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that for you.
Are you
I
good?
I do want to meet you, but I do want you to do gigs as well. So
No, and if you're it's I for me, it's New Year's is usually when I'm like, I'm there. So
cool. And I've never done New Year's, so that's
are you actually
why
serious? Dude,
I'm actually
oh
serious.
my gosh. Well, are you West Coast always?
I have been like Midwest my whole life, and then like over the last 3 years, West Coast. And like
Well, that
every
makes sense.
year, it would be like we do some summer, and then I was like, me and my brother and my buddy were like, we're doing New Year's, we're doing it, we're doing it. And then it's like, oh, I don't know, and then money, and then baby, and or
Absolutely.
something or whatever. I mean, I don't have the baby, but I mean, like people have babies, and
I
you know,
wasn't gonna I didn't think you did, but I wasn't gonna say that, but you said it, so it's good.
absolutely not. I have a cat, and it's not even my cat. It's I'm a step cat dad.
I have a cat, but no, I don't.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a cat, too much commitment.
Oh
You're like, "Look,
yeah,
this
wow.
they won't let me into the garden with this cat."
No, they won't. That's strictly against their policies.
No, strictly. Look, you can try to sneak it in under the suit, maybe.
But do not post it on Instagram and
Do
do not
not
tag.
what we have learned is do not tag.
Oh God.
Actually brutal.
Super brutal. I man, I was just about to say all the cool shit I did inside of the sphere, but I can't.
No,
Fuck.
unfortunately, you can't.
I did so much cool debaucherous shit inside the sphere, but
Yeah,
I want to go back.
for I'm sure the one person who doesn't know what we're talking about, a guy posted a picture or a video smoking a bong in the sphere and has been
Mhm.
now banned. Is it for life? I didn't read carefully.
I'm pretty sure it said for life from, and it's like Sphere, MSG, Beacon, all the MSG prop like Chicago
Right.
theater.
And while
Yeah.
that sounds fake to me, I do think they're actually sort of legit about that. Like in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm like, oh, like they don't know. Like, how would they know? But I actually like think they maybe do.
Unfortunately, they're like the venue that could probably actually pull off this ban. That could
Right. Isn't
like
that crazy? Like that's to me, I'm like, wait, that's like
it's
a lot.
terrifying.
No, that's like
It's
really
like yeah.
I'm like, you're sort of like running a thing for debauchery. Like, no offense, it's like you made a venue and I'm gonna get banned. I'm gonna get banned. me defending this guy, I'm like, actually, wait, no, never mind.
You promoted debauchery in the sphere.
Yeah, I'm like, couldn't be more sober. I'm like, wait, guys, no, please. I'm just saying, you got never. You know what? Frankly, never mind. Sorry to the guy, but I'm not dying on this hill. I do want to go to New Year's.
We can't even talk about this. I got to be honest. We have to move on
No, we
because
do. No, we do.
we this is
No,
not
we do.
funny anymore.
No,
It's
actually, this is deadly serious, and we do have to move on.
we have to move on.
We've alienated everyone who isn't so in Phish.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Let's be honest. Who's listening to this? It's not a lot of Taylor Swift fans.
I
It's
was
mostly
wondering. I thought it was, but I didn't know for sure. I'm sure like four of my friends will listen to this and be like, I don't know anything you said. This
oh
is gonna be a
God.
different person. They're gonna be like, I actually don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
I'm
Do,
saying all the
I
stuff
mean
I hide away in like other conversations.
that has been wow, we will get to your shows.
Okay, well, no,
That-
we will.
we absolutely will. That has been the last year of me posting Fish stuff and then talking to my comedy friends. They're like, "What are you saying?
Yes.
What are you
No,
talking about?"
no, the comedy kids, they're like, wait, actually, like, we thought this was sort of a bit, but it does seem like you're like really in on I'm like, no, like what you don't know is the 10 years before you met me has been something so different.
Yeah. They're like, "We know you've taken a couple weekends to like go do acid at something with a bunch of white people, but like, what is that real? You're really going to Fish?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And the difference is like I think people will be like, "Oh, you went once because it was like summer and it was fun." And then I think when people start to get like a little the extent of it, it's truly shocking for people.
it's appalling." They're
It's
like,
appalling.
they like really don't know what to do with it, and they don't know. I think what is truly confusing is when one of the videos does well. When they're they're like, "This has
Actually,
700 comments, and I have no idea what you're talking about."
that is so true, and it's actually one of my favorite things. Like, because I love posting inside Phish content,
Yeah.
And on some level, I remember being like, this could be throwaway because like comedy people simply don't care about this. But I'm like, Phish fans, this is for you. I love you and I am you. And it's like, it's just like this little in circle and everyone's watching it being like, what is happening? What's going on?
Yeah. When you so I don't ever do I've got like a couple like jokes that like lean towards maybe I listen to jam bands or something, but you will
Uh,
talk about seeing Phish shows and like that. Like, what's the crowd response like? It-
I, that's a great question. It's hit or miss. It depends on what room I'm in. I stopped doing that joke for the one of my Phish jokes for a bit, but I've brought it back. I think the dream for the joke is that it's written in such a way that even if you don't know Phish, you get that it's funny because it's
yeah.
about me being in an environment that makes no sense for me demographically or
Yeah.
vibe wise. Because like I think what I've been writing around recently is that it's funny that I got into Phish because I was such like a risk averse teenager and I was like so sober. But the line I've been using is I'm like, well, apparently I was not vibe averse. Like I was very in on, so I've been bringing
Yeah.
it back. I think when I was doing it before, where I was just relying on the word Phish to fill people in, it was like hit or miss because people who didn't know Phish were like, I don't know what this joke means. But
Yeah.
providing more context, it's starting to like hit for people. So my dream is I am trying to bring it back for all audiences in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't do it because I'm risk averse in my comedy, I guess. I mean, I'm just like, they're not gonna get it. And I'm also like in LA, I'm like, they don't get anything. Like
Well, yeah, what are you talking about in your comedy?
I like for when I first moved to LA, I was single, and so I was talking about dating. Have you can you imagine a
Yeah.
comedian talking about a Bumble date? But I did talk a little bit about like because like open relationships are such a thing now, and they are such a thing in LA, and so I talked about like tripping into an open relationship and kind of had like a long story about that. But I would open up being like, I did a joke about uh like I know a lot of you have the same question in your mind right now, and it's like, how many Dave Matthews Band shows have I seen? Good question. And it's like
Yes, I
and
actually think that one, the word Dave Matthews Band might work better than Phish for a joke. Like, I'm
people
sure that
hear
that's
Dave
crushing.
Matthews Band and they picture the world a little quicker than they do with Fish,
Yes, I think that's what I'm finding as well. And
which
I don't,
sucks
yeah, no, it
because I want to
sucks.
say Fish.
Obviously, we all want to say Phish, but we have to say like Dave Matthews, but like, obviously, that's really what a comedian problem. I'm like,
I
I
know.
want to mention Phish, but it's not funny enough, fast enough.
Yeah. And so to be succincter, I have to say Dave Matthews Band.
I know. Oh, ugh.
Surgery.
Oh my god, that is really fun. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with talking about comedy. I would talk about it for literally the rest of my life.
I could talk about it for the rest of this podcast, and I'm sure that some people would enjoy that. But
And it will come back up as the thing though. So we'll
I bet we talk about comedy again. I assume it comes up. But we are here to talk about your shows. And let's just start with your first show. What's the first concert you ever saw in your life?
first concert, Avril Lavigne with Boys Like Girls opening at the Agganis Arena in Boston.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know. I think it was 2008. I would have to double check.
Yeah. Damn.
It
Wow. So
rocked.
so that's like a little post Avril's prime, but so it's like an
Agreed.
Avril return.
Yes, and it was Avril Return, and I was so young that I had no concept of that. Like I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
she must be crushing." But looking back, Avril Lavigne being at the BU ice rink is like that for her was probably a slight step down to what she was doing. And I had a friend whose dad worked at Agganis and got us tickets, so it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. I was like, "This is the best thing that has ever happened to me."
Were you a fan? Did you
Oh
know a lot of
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I knew everything because my older sister had the CD. So to me, I was like, this is anything that she liked, I was like, that's cool. So
Right.
I was like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened. Like, this is a rock star. And it was. She was amazing.
She is a rock star. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like for our childhood, Anthems, bangers.
Anthems. To see in real life, I was like, wow, stunning, stunning, stunning. And Boys Like Girls is so of the time, so it was also great to have that in the mix.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I mean, I think every band in the world would like to play Skater Boy, and you got to see Skater Boy live.
I
Like,
got to see Skater Boy live. You're right. No, that is true. Every band.
would be like, I mean, we could slip Skater Boy into the set list and like fucking have a really good show.
No, no, like Skater Boy won't miss. It won't miss.
We
It's
could put it
about
like
it
anywhere and we'd
anywhere.
be fine.
Anywhere. And I feel like any song that has a reference to like going to the show is gonna hit because you're at the show.
You feel like, yes.
Yes, the last verse, you're like, yeah, we made it to the show. He's slamming on guitar. And we're like, he is slamming on guitar.
I'm like, fuck, this is my life now.
No, like this is my life now. I'm getting ties, I'm getting the bracelets with the metal thing, the studs. Like this is my life.
Joy is tonight and angst starts tomorrow at school. I'm gonna be
God.
like, fuck you guys. You guys don't fucking get it, dude.
No, I'm like, you guys don't get it, dude. You don't even know. That was me walking around 8th grade or
God.
whatever.
Been to the promised land and now I'm in this fucking school, dude.
And now I'm in this absolute desert of culture.
The day before, you're like, I can't wait to finish my project.
No, the day before I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. History rocks.
Saw Avril Lavigne and you're like, fuck this place, dude.
I'm like, dude, this isn't rock and roll at all.
Oh man. Yeah, that's how it is. That's how it be.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the opposite end of that, opposite
Okay.
of the joy, did you ever have like a worst concert experience? Either
Okay.
band's fault or your fault or
This question I found incredibly hard. I honestly could not think of a worst band experience. I did think of a worst comedy show
oh
experience. I
yeah.
just think band, it's like even the worst concert, I'm still like, this is fine. Like I really couldn't think of anything
Yeah.
so horrible. But I think comedy, like when that starts getting bad, is bad. And
Yeah.
the one I thought of was like a couple months ago, I saw a comedian, will not name, who started the show was like okay, and he started getting so drunk on stage that he
Mm,
did a joke he already did but didn't know he'd already done it, and the whole
damn.
audience didn't laugh because he had already done it, and we
Right.
were like, oh no, he doesn't know.
Ah,
And then he got into the classic like, you can't say anything anymore jokes. But what was crazy was that no one was mad at him. Like the whole time, even his edgier stuff, people were actually like riding for him. And then
yeah.
he was like, you guys suck. Like no one can say anything anymore. I was like, wait, everyone loved you though.
Yeah.
What
You forgot your
happened?
set and we didn't like it.
You forgot your set, and even then people forgave you. So that was
You
the
can't say
first.
anything twice anymore. It's just like,
Look, you can't say anything twice anymore.
dude, it's like back in the 90s, I used to be able to say a joke and then say it again and then say it again third time. And it's good every time.
No, that's actually so. Do you have a worst show? Like that was, I don't know why I found that so hard to think of, a worst show.
Yeah, I do. I have a couple worse concerts, but I think that that's a point well made about like if you like your worst concert is like not even close to your worst comedy show that you've seen. Like at
Literally
least
not
for
even
I
close.
mean, we've seen a lot of bombing and I like and am fine with watching someone bomb at this point. Like and in Chicago, there's definitely like that's where I was doing a lot of my beginning days comedy stuff where you see like a lot of really bad a lot of bad shit and
Right.
I like Chicago is definitely a town of like you can throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks and if it doesn't like a pretty forgiving audience but like yeah when you I don't know that like right now in comedy it seems like there is this like reserved little 3-minute slot for every comedian to be like you can't fucking do anything anymore dude and I'm like I hate that part of the sermon like it's like he gets to the like And now we will talk about how I can't do whatever I want when I just did a half hour of whatever I wanted, like,
Which
and
is what
opened with it.
exactly. And what's crazy, yeah, I'm like, interestingly, you are doing it. And that's what gets me. I'm like, wait.
Booked, paid, getting a slot, naming the thing, poster.
Right. I'm
I
always
can't
like,
say anything.
I can't say anything. I'm always just like, who is this for? Also, because I'm like, we actually came to see you though, also.
Yeah, paid,
Paid. No, paid. So that was,
paid.
yeah, that was my thought. Worst. I was like, huh. And I also think it's like worst comedy. It just always to me feels more personal than worst music. Cause like worst music, even if they're doing badly, it's like they'll only address it a little if it's on their side. Whereas in comedy, it's like, we're really suddenly you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Like you
Yes.
are talking to me.
I feel like at like the really bad, like I've seen artists be too drunk on stage, like a musician be
Oh,
too
yeah.
drunk on stage. And like it gets real quiet when that happens. Like it'll be like there's a lot of breaks in between songs. All of a sudden mics are turned off. All of a sudden, like we're like shuffling around. But like in a comedy show, if the guy's too drunk on stage, more talking. There's not
Right.
there's
Oh
not
my
like a stage
God.
hand that comes out and like moves the guy or like changes the guitar out or something. There's like
Wait, you're so
more.
right. There's more, and I think when a comedian gets too fucked up on stage, it's like they have too much power, and like it's like sort of increasing their like that energy. Whereas in music, I do think it is like that person falls away a little because we're all like, oh no.
And there's like a crew of people like cut it like
Yeah, like
like do
no, just
let's yeah. And
it's some might say comedy could use that. You're like other people being like, hey, just
there's just a guy with a light
no, there's
and that
it's
guy's helpless.
helpless. The light guy, helpless,
He's like
tries.
he's
Try
like
as
here's
he
the
might.
light. I mean, I'll
Have you
blink it,
here?
but that's all I'm gonna do.
And I think rock and roll has the history. I don't know if this is the same anymore, but I feel like I used to hear about like concerts in the 80s where you're like, Steven Tyler was so fucked up, he couldn't even sing. It was awesome. You know, like I think
Yeah.
it's incorporated into that. Whereas it's, yeah. So I feel like when I see it in music, for some reason, it feels like less. I'm like, oh, that's like one section of this history.
Yeah. Yeah. And I I really do like my all of my uncles when I was doing Chicago or comedy in Chicago, they're all like, everyone's partying super hard and right? Like they're all doing cocaine all the time and getting hammered. I'm like, it's a very sober scene. Like it's a very like that
Yes.
guy is few and far between the like fucked up comedian guy.
No,
Like,
so agreed. I think we just hear stories about the 80s and 90s, but it's
and
like
we're like,
yeah, it's just like that's not my experience of the scene at all. But
not at
I don't
all.
think and I don't want it to be, but it's just like when you hear people tell the stories about partying, like you are like that sounds cool, but like I don't know that it is.
I it's and this is like a compliment. It's like the smartest nerds I know do comedy. Like the smartest, brilliant,
I've been
like
saying it.
there's gentle nerds. Like I don't have a lot of like angsty Sam Kinison cocaine railing friends, you know, like
That is so true. And I've been saying it. I'm like, I wonder when TikTok is going to realize that these are nerds. Like, I think we're like,
yeah,
cool. I'm like, it is, but like for nerds, it's cool for nerds.
yeah, exactly.
Fish, cool for nerds.
Show that video, show any video to like an actual cool person. They're like, I don't fucking get this
Right.
because
Because like
I'm
cool.
cool.
No, because I'm cool. Like the rest of us, we spent all of our sunny days at an open mic in a basement figuring out the map. Like cool people aren't doing that. Cool people went to the beach. So they
Yeah,
don't understand. They're like, "How did you figure out how to say it like that?" I'm like, "Well,
I
I
thought
was
about it and
inside.
thought about it,
I thought, and then I went inside."
and then I went inside. Um,
Oh,
wow. Well, I'm glad you brought up comedy shows in there because yeah, a tough stand-up show is really hard to watch, and watching a comic berate an audience for not being good is like the hardest thing to watch for me. I just it's a bummer. I would rather watch a blacked out dude sing a song than a like a blacked out dude yell at an audience from a comedy perspective.
absolutely, absolutely feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to pick your best show ever. It sounds like you've been to tons of shows. But do you have any honorable mentions that you'd be remiss if we didn't bring them up on the podcast?
Absolutely. Okay, honorable mention number one, Paul McCartney
Yeah.
playing on Jimmy Fallon in 2013. I know.
You were
I was
at the
there.
Tonight Show?
I was at the Tonight Show.
Whoa.
Can you believe? So the tickets for it are free if you show up and wait in line at like 3 a.m. or whatever. And my sister at the time had the internship at NBC where it's like you see these young people giving tours. So that was her gig. And I was in high school and she was like, you have to come visit. Tickets are free. You should just like come one weekend, just pick a weekend. So I just picked a weekend, like no idea who was on. They didn't announce it, anything. Picked a weekend, went to stay with my sister. And like a couple weeks before, it's like Paul McCartney on Jimmy Fallon. And I looked at the date and I was like, I think that's the date that I got tickets for. And it was. So I'm like,
Whoa.
16 years old. I'm like, you are kidding me. You are kidding me. I'm in line. And it's like, we're going in and I'm having genuinely like a panic attack because it is so intense. I'm like
Yeah.
my mouth is dry. My heart is beating. Like I looked to one of the young people with the clipboard. I was like, hey, do you guys like have water around here? They were like, no, dude, you're going to see Paul McCartney. You just have to go. And what was crazy is like they picked me out. I was like really young and I was like stoked. I'm like wearing like a Trey Anastasio band t-shirt. You know, I'm like, you know, whatever. And they're like, hey, can you come here for a second? I was like, yeah. They're like, do you want to stand up in the grandstand, like on the stage when Paul's playing? And I was like, so I'm up there. I'm up in the thing. Paul McCartney comes out and it's Jimmy Fallon. So he's going to play like 2 songs and he comes
Yeah, right.
out and it's like, the way that I was like, it's not hype. The way this guy, he knows he's like, I'm Paul McCartney. And he walked out
Yeah.
and he's being the Paul McCartney that you want to see. He turns around, he like waves up in the grandstand. And I'm like, that is the guy. I'm losing my mind. And he played genuinely 14 songs. 14
A
songs.
full show, like
A
a
full
set.
show. And he like the Beatles, like he did Obla Obla Da, like he did everything. He was like, I'm Paul McCartney and you're getting a show.
Yeah.
It was insane. No, it was insane.
And you're in a TV studio like it's the fucking Ed Sullivan show. And the
Yes.
crowd's going nuts. And
Nuts.
it's the Beatles.
And it's the Beatles. And he's like, I'm bad. Like he's like yards away from me. Like I'm seeing the details on his face. I just think there's something about being like, I am in the lineage of culture of like having seen a member of the Beatles that like hit. I was like, it's just like, that is insane. That's an insane thing to have seen.
It is insane. I mean, he's gotten brought up on this podcast a bunch.
Oh, really? Great.
And he is, because he like, to be at a show and feel like what a Beatles song does to a crowd, like in a stadium, is amazing. Or like, you know, I've talked about how like when he walked out at Wrigley Field the first time I saw him, and he did Magical Mystery Tour, and these fucking ladies next to me are like 85 years old, like bawling, they're holding each other, crying, bawling through the song.
Oh,
Like it's 50 years later, and like you said, like that is such important culture to like
right.
to like consume. Like, yeah, as kids we like watched Beatles footage and we listened to Beatles music with our families and stuff, but like, yeah, to get to like watch Paul McCartney walk out on stage with the bass and like 2 3 4, like it's like, what the fuck. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. And what's crazy is the album he was dropping then was also so good. I like listened to it because of that whole thing. And he had a song, it was an album called New. And that title track, I was like, wow, like you're still writing brilliant music. Just, yeah, that's so special. So fortunate to have seen Paul McCartney.
And speaking of cool, like there is not a person cool enough to not make that cool. Like if it, like there's like musicians who would tell the story the exact same way as you. Like I was in the grandstand right behind Paul McCartney, and it's like fully a famous musician themselves. Like that, you know, he is that big of a deal. He's huge.
Yes, so true. I'm glad he's been getting brought up on the pod. That makes me happy.
I've seen him 4 times. I saw him in 2022 at SoFi Stadium. It was like 80,000 people or something, and he was like amazing. I mean, he's just
Oh god, stunning. That's yeah. It's
still,
just great when someone lives up to what something so big, because that seems impossible to me to live up to. But I think to your point of like the people crying in the crowd, it's not even just about like this person, but it's like the fact that there's been this movement and culture that reached so many people, and like and it's clearly moving through him. Like that is so special. Like so
yeah,
many people in the world. Like that.
yeah. And
Unbelievable.
we just, it's almost impossible to deliver that, and he
Oh
is able
yeah.
to. Come
Yes.
on, you have to deliver the experience of the Beatles to
The
people. Like,
Beatles.
what the fuck?
And there was like weirdly a humbleness to that energy I was finding, which
Yeah,
is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Humble. Like it was though. I was like, oh, you're just like out here. Hey.
yep,
And it's not like fake. It's not like put on humble. I'm like, you're genuinely just being like, I am Paul McCartney. Like, I am. I am.
ain't no way getting around it.
No,
I'm
there's
Paul
no way of
McCartney.
getting around it. I am Paul McCartney, but like, what's up, guys? Like, let's play some songs.
Pretty cool. I wrote this one with my friend George. Here we go. And you're like, I know who that is.
No, that's
George.
the energy. That is, I know who that is. Ah. But to him, he is like, that was my friend, though, is the thing.
Yeah. It's a good friend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
So
you're just
that
like,
was,
yeah, dude.
no, that's absolutely it. Um, I will say also picking the shows for this was almost impossible, but I did what I could. Paul McCartney up there for sure. I had to my other honorable mention I had to put in a comedy show because that is my life now, was that I saw Gary Gulman at the Vermont Comedy Club last year. Do you know Gulman at all?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know him, but
Sure. Me neither, but like his material. One of my favorites. And I saw that show. I've listened to like all of his albums and everything. And it to me was so similar to the feeling of like walking out, going at a Phish show, and they walk out and there's like that energy. Like he walked out at that show, and I was like, oh, like he is tapped into the energy and like the flow of the jokes and the set. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know it could be done that way. Um,
yeah.
and to me, there's like this, to me, it's like I watched him walk out, and to me, I was like seeing him see the room and just be like, hands off the dials, like this is already going, and just going with it, which I think in comedy is such like sometimes I'm trying to like fight the room or like control it. And I just watched him go out and be like, oh, this is the room. And like
Yeah. And operate.
insane.
And
Yes.
like, not to take anything away from like comedians who kind of like have their stuff and nail it. Like, there's something to like, one of the best comedy shows I ever saw was John Mulaney in Chicago theater when he did
Oh,
the the newest one with the cow and the cow's Trump and fuck.
yes. Wait, the newest one, like Baby
not
J?
not not
No, 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 no.
not the newest one.
Oh,
Not
okay,
the
got it.
not the newest one, but the
Yeah.
newest of the old John Mulaney. And he like that he is like nailing everything on the screws, and like
Yes.
the hand gesture is going to be the same the next night and all that stuff, and like that is very cool to see. That's a level of operating. But like, yeah, when you like watch a guy step in, or like just you watch a comedian step into a small club and look around and assess the situation and then operate from wherever the room's at, like, yeah, that makes you kind of almost, at least for me, it makes me be like, do I have that? Like that's
Yes. And that
yeah.
show made me be like, well, okay, tell me about this. When I see a concert, it's usually like so magical. I'm like, oh, I have no idea how you guys did that. That was so wonderful. When I see comedy, a lot of times because I study it so carefully, I'm like, oh, I see how you got here and here. But when I see a comedian that makes me go, I have no idea how you did that in the way I feel about music, I'm like, oh my God. It's special. It's
Yeah.
terrifying because you're like, I wonder if I'll be that someday.
Right. It's just like music where you like get the leads. Like you know when you're moving into a chorus, or like you know when you're moving into like a punchline, or like you can hear the beginning of a setup and be like, "Oh, yeah,
Yes,
for
right.
for sure." And I yeah, you love when like a comedian can surprise you with jokes from all over the place, like in little
Yes.
pockets you didn't know that there was even going to be a joke, or yeah.
Absolutely. Because to me, like, I'm like, oh, this feels like a magic trick. Like you are, and the magic, like I didn't even know it was happening. And you were like, oh yeah, what about this? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me. That was amazing.
That was like Beth Stelling was that in the backyard in LA one time. Like I have seen
Oh,
Beth
she's
Stelling and I
amazing.
know Beth Stelling's set, and you know, she had been on other shows that I had seen, but I kind of watched her like walk into this like kind of cool LA backyard and kind of just, you know, be there with the crowd on the mic. Maybe did a little bit of her material, but it was a little like yeah, just it flowed with what was going on in the night. And like then there was a bunch of other comedians that were really great that did their bits, like they did their
Yes.
shit and it was really great. But Beth was like so yeah, I mean she's pretty amazing to watch in a setting like that where she's just kind of like, what's going on in here?
She really is stunning and so amazing at that, just the whole thing. And I think what you're mentioning is what's interesting about stand-up is that you're like, the answer is always simpler than I want it to be, which is like be there in the room with people. But in my mind, I'm like, no, I have to. It's like really what people love is that. It's like what's truly funny about what's going on. And the people who can seemingly effortlessly tap into that, it's amazing to watch. Beth came to the comedy club here as well a couple months ago. Stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like a huge fan and
It rocks.
have like met her and been like, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah,
Fucking
she,
I just
I
like
had
love
I had a
I
bunch of
love her.
friends who did that too. She rocks and is so personable. It was almost I remember I walked out of the club, like she was like talking to people who wanted to talk to her and like selling merch. And I was just like sort of exiting, but the door was sort of past that. And she stopped me and was just like, oh my gosh, hey, thank you for coming to the show. I was like, oh my god,
Oh,
yeah,
of
no, you're
course.
so welcome. You're so anytime, really. But she was so kind, so kind and generous with her time.
Yeah, and I you know, like the thing that you the thing that you like about that set out of her, or the thing that you like about Gary, you're like, yeah, do I have that? And like they didn't have that for a long time. Like they, you know, like they have had to get so unbelievably comfortable. And Beth has been doing what Beth does for like so long. I mean, like, you know, and she can step into situations and be super comfortable now. And not to say that like you or I can't do that. Of
Sure.
course, you know, we're capable, you know, performers and all that kind of stuff. But there is like a level of comfortability that yeah, you just have to earn a little bit. Like you have to just get
Yes,
yeah,
which I
you just
love. You no, you
can't cut.
can't cut, and that is exciting to me. I'm like comedy, it's like you cannot. It's like you have to earn that, and I think that's amazing and terrifying and so cool.
Yeah, it's not like sports where you can be like 6'8" and it's like that's your uh upside. Like you just you have to work on it. Like
Right. You
you
have to
know.
keep yeah, and Goldman has that in his comedy tips. It's like it's one of the few professions where you have to practice failing publicly, which
Yeah.
is true. And I'm like, yeah, that is like comedy is hard for that reason.
Another thing that cool people don't do.
No, exactly. Like I'm like, hey, everyone, want to watch me at potentially my worst? Potentially.
Want to see me so red, so sweaty, so stammering?
So stamp exactly, which makes it when you earn it and like when it hits and when jokes start clicking, you're like, I earned that. I earned that
Yeah.
because it's absolutely failed.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's not being funny in conversation. It's like worked on whatever. I mean, we're getting
Yeah.
back on comedy. We
No,
said
we're
we
back
would,
on comedy. I promised the people, but I know I promised the people, so I had to fulfill.
and you did.
So those are my
And
honorable mentions.
we and listen, I am happy to change this show from best show ever to Beth's show ever, and we talk about Beth Stelling every single
It's a
episode. I'm
new
down.
show, and I have many people who would line up to be on that podcast. I know a lot of people.
Hell yeah. Um, do you have a best show that you ever saw in your life?
I have a best show. I debated between two very close shows that were a month apart, but I am going for my first Phish show, June
Wow.
8th, 2012, which is actually tomorrow is the anniversary of that. June 8th, 2012, Worcester Centrum, DCU Center at the time. I had a perfect first show for me. I had a perfect first show. Worcester, where I would later get my driver's license. It is, dude, it was just like, okay, leading up to
I
my
think that's in the
first,
show notes, right? Of that show.
it's
It's
in
like
the show notes. They're
Max
like,
would later get
Max would later get his driver's license here. Barely, truly barely. I
by the skin of his teeth.
by the absolute no, he actually the guy actually was like, "Do you promise to drive more before you practice more before you go out?" And I said yes, and then he gave me my
He was
license.
just he was just cool. That's why you got your
No,
license.
he didn't make me parallel park. That's how badly I did.
He's like, you know what?
He was like, but I was good. I just panicked. I freaked out. Worcester, were you at those shows? Or
I was not.
you
I
were
was
not
not.
there.
No.
Me being like everyone, you must have been there. Okay. So
Yeah.
it first of all, if you look at the set list, it is I think a perfect introductory show. So it's like free opener, which I had been thinking about that day, not saying I did that, but question mark. I had just finished finals. That's right. I finished finals freshman year of high school. I was like, I'm out of here. I was so miserable at school. I'd been looking for, all year long. I'd been listening to Phish at high school. I didn't know anyone else who liked Phish. I was like, do you guys know about this band? To every single kid, no, no, no.
Right.
I get 2 tickets for my birthday to see Phish in Worcester, but I'm like, I don't know anyone who wants to go to this, and I'm not gonna drag some lame 14-year-old to see Phish. So I go to Worcester, and the first thing I have to do is sell sell the other ticket to, looking back, a scalper. A scalper.
Welcome
I
to the
didn't
scene.
Welcome to the scene. I didn't know. The guy was wearing a full tracksuit. I was like, sure, why not? It was the buzz around. I think it had like a perfect. It's like the lot scene was right next to it at the time, like this little shakedown. Terrifying and so exciting to me. Like it was going to the
Yeah.
circus. Going to the circus. I was so scared, similar to the Paul McCartney. Like my heart was racing. I was like, I actually don't think I can do this. Like this is scary. But I knew I was like, I love Phish so much. Like I need to see them. Just once. I was like, I need to see these fucking guys. I was like, dude, I'm freaking out. I show up so early. I'm so early. And I don't like hang out. Like I go to my seat, like my numbered single
Yeah.
ticket seat. And I'm just sort of sitting there. I'm like,
Like,
and
a lot of
people,
commotion outside the venue right now.
I know, like people are sort of, ugh. I'm watching people fill up. People are getting into my aisle and they're trying to like, oh, they're like, we've got like 5 people. And I don't understand that people just kind of do whatever. So I'm like, well, this is my ticket. So I'm just
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I just turned 15. I'm like, well, I'm gonna sit here.
And you're
And
fully by yourself.
I'm fully by myself.
Yeah. And so are people like reacting to that in any way? Are they like, hey, are you like waiting for someone? Like, are like,
Yes. Yes. And I get mixed reactions. I think this is what's so funny about Phish is that half of the adults are like, okay, whatever. Like we're just trying to do our thing. So sort of maybe get out of the way. Half of
yeah.
them were like that. They were like, well, we've got people. And then the other half were like, oh my God, is it your first show? And I was like, yeah. One woman, God bless, a couple of people were really, really kind to me. And one woman was like, I have gifts for you. I was like,
Yes.
what? She was like, yeah. And she pulled out an MTV Raps LL Cool J baseball card. Gives me that.
Oh,
First of all,
whoa.
I know. gives me a little like flashlight, a tiny flashlight ring. I was like, cool. And then gives me like a pack of Kleenex. I was like, what? She's like, you will need it. I was like, you're being silly. It,
I love it.
it was awesome, dude. The energy, people are starting to fill up. I'm like, this is crazy, dude. The lights are blue. I was like, dude, this shit's fucking nuts. And it was like, no, it's the lights are white on, they're blue on stage, and then they turn white, and the band starts walking out. I'm behind the stage, so like all the band's looking out. It's like the lights turn white, and I'm like locked in. It's like the panic. I'm like
Yeah.
locked in. And
Yes.
I was like, it was like watching my imaginary friends walk on stage. I was like, you're real. You're real.
There they are.
And it's like, and it's even more cinematic because I'm seeing the backs of their heads and I'm seeing what they're seeing. And they start, it's like that first note of Free hits, like it's like fucking guitar. And I literally just start crying. Like I'm full ass crying. And the lady, she like, is like, ah.
Get the Kleenex.
Dude, I was like, you're right. It was, and it's like later, like a pic, like the official pictures from the night dropped, and like a bunch of them were like from that angle where I was standing, like looking out. But it's like that Roses Are Free in the first set, which had never heard, but was like, this song's amazing. And Ween had just broken up.
Yeah.
So the lady was like, you don't like, you'll never see this song anywhere else. Like, this is really special. Bouncing Around the Room first set, which was my favorite song in high school. So I was like, this show's for me. Down with the Z second set opener, classic. Like we're hitting the classics, accessible classics, like Mike's song, Weekapog. Like we're hitting them. It was just like, dude, I look at that set list and I'm like, Susie Greenberg encore. Like, dude, it was just like, this was a perfect evening. And I was like, I also felt really brave because I had been so scared, and I was like, not only did I do it, I like made friends and I had the best time ever. Like I was the opposite. Like I went back to school for my like last test, and I was like, I was wearing the shirt, like it was like the Mayan calendar shirt because it was 2012. Remember when we all were like in 2012?
Yeah, we were big on the Mayan calendar in 2012.
Like, dude, we all forgot. We all sort of like put that. We were big on that. The shirt. I go to school to take my last test in the shirt, and I'm like, I am unstoppable. You cannot stop me. I've seen Phish in Worcester. I can do anything, and I survived.
Yeah. Look at how about me? Like you're walking out of the venue, like, how about Max?
I literally I was like, check this guy out. Like
I could go to pretty much anything, actually. It's like a refresh of like, remember the first time maybe you don't drive a car. I don't know what you do.
I do.
But the first time you ever drive a car by yourself and you're like, holy shit, I'm in a car by myself and I'm driving it and I'm on a road. And it's like a refresh of that feeling. You're like, I could fucking go up to New York and see these guys right now. No problem.
That is a really great analogy. That is exactly how it felt. I'm in the car by myself and I'm like, I can do this.
It's a little scary, but it's a little like heart pounding.
Good to remember that like a lot of life's big changes for me have come up around like that sort of feeling of being like, I don't know if I can do this. And what's so great is finding out that I can do this, you know?
Yeah. Do you ever feel that way about comedy? Do you ever feel like when you... Yeah. It's funny when people go, do you get nervous when you go on stage? I'm like, yeah.
Do I get nervous? I ran my first hour a couple months ago, and it was like that thing where I was like, I've never run an hour, and I'm backstage and I'm like, I have to believe I can do this, but you don't know until you know. And proving to yourself. I think comedy is so beautiful for that reason. Like it's set up so many goals for myself where it's like, these are opportunities to prove to myself like what I can really do just for me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it is nerve-wracking and it's like vulnerable. And like, yeah, what you get a chance to do something like that. It's very easy to say no. Like it's very easy to be like, I'm not gonna do the Phish show. I'm like 15 years old. Like
I was crazy. So close. The way that I was like, I can't. And it was like, you have to do it.
Yeah. Or like you show up and you're like, yeah, maybe I don't go to the show. Maybe I go home.
No, maybe I go home. For me, it
Yeah.
was once I got in I was like, we're in. But for a
Yep.
second, you're like,
This is a lot.
yeah,
This is a
after
lot.
the scalper, it's like, I don't know.
And I was in my 20s when I finally saw Phish, and like, I was listening to him a bunch, and I had like been going to bars, and like I had been a little bit more maybe in some areas of like have put myself in some scary situations, or like, situations where I'm like, I don't fit in here.
Yes.
I look like I shouldn't be here, or something like that. And I like, it wasn't so much like being terrified of Phish, but yeah, like you have so many thoughts about what the experience is. You have so many thoughts about like what you think it's going to be. Speaking back to like filling in blanks, like we were talking
Right.
about earlier, you're like, it's probably going to be this, and there's probably going to be a drunk guy, and they're probably going to offer me drugs I don't want. It's probably going to be
Yes.
crazy. It's probably going to be
All of
fucking,
the above. All of the above. And what I love so much about remembering like my first Phish show and that time is sometimes it can be hard for me to remember what I was like at that age or who that person is. And then I tell that
Mm,
story or who I thought I was at the time. Like I didn't think of myself as brave, but looking back, I'm like, oh my God, what a cool kid. Like that is
yeah.
awesome. Like what an interesting series of decisions to follow through on. Like it's so fun to remember that. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. You're like, I liked a band that no one in my school liked. Did not do that because I wanted to be liked or be cool. And
And it
like,
didn't
did that
help.
for me. It
Yeah,
didn't,
it
it didn't
didn't
help.
help.
But like, yeah, I feel like once you grow into adulthood, you start realizing like the importance of like being your own person and being yourself, and like liking the things that you like and doing the things that serve you and all that kind of stuff. And when you're in high school, you don't do any of that at all. You fucking do what everybody else does so you don't fucking die every day of
Yes,
embarrassment.
every
And
day.
yeah, that is a brave, like it is a brave thing to be like, yeah, I'm like way into Phish. I like this shit. I'm gonna go to the show by myself. I'm not gonna bring any of you nerds with me. That's for sure. You're gonna
Right,
ruin
the
it.
way that I was like, you guys wish. I was like, maybe if you had shown some interest in September, I would have considered it.
If one of you was chill, you'd be coming, but not one of you. Not a one of
I
you
was
was
like, you guys
chill,
really aren't meeting the standard, so
and not even coming close, to be
not
honest.
even coming, not even in spitting distance.
Um, man, wow. So you've been chasing your first show ever since you've seen so many Phish shows,
I've seen so many Phish shows. Yeah, over 50.
and your best one still
It's
numero uno.
yeah, number 1, you know? I've had a lot of great shows. I've had a lot of and I think somewhere along the line I stopped comparing them, but it's
Yeah,
number 1, such a beautiful, perfect thing.
it sounds like that. It sounds amazing. Just an incredible picture painted of just a young kid sitting next to some nice people with Kleenex and
S
cards.
and cards, and a couple people who were like, "Could you please move over? My girlfriend's coming."
You're like, okay, this is my ticket, bro.
The way that I did say that, and the guy was like, "Oh, okay."
He's like, what?
I was like, "I am seat 32, so I will be staying here."
And could I just see her ticket really quick? And then I'll just see and then yeah, so and in the background it's like roses are free. You're like, yeah, and then really quick,
It's
I'll just
funny
stand in the aisle. I'll stand in the
'cause
aisle.
I didn't think I was being, like, subversive, but looking back, they were like, "I can't believe this kid is saying this." Like, I thought I was following the rules, and they were like, "Oh my god, like, you're pushing back."
They're like, whoa. Like, because everybody else in the whole venue is just like, "Ugh."
Totally. I was like, "Roses are free." I'm like, actually, could I"
Poke your head down the aisle. Hi, Max. How you doing? Handshake.
That's so beautiful. Yes, literally.
So that was my conversation with Max. I I loved listening back to that episode. I don't always. It's just like anybody. I don't like listening back to myself on these all the time. Okay, I'll be honest. It's kind of weird. I piss myself off often, when I'm listening back. But I had truly so much fun listening back to this episode of me and Max just goofing. We'd never met before. Like that was the first time we met. And he was just super cool, super down to do bits and jokes and talk about comedy. And I could do that shit all day long. And so, if you like this episode, there's a whole bunch of other episodes that are like it. We've got 2 other seasons that have already come out. Interviewed some very cool people on all of those. And so if you're interested in these conversations, this is your first episode ever. Check those out. If you're interested in more content, I put out bonus episodes on the Patreon. Go ahead and find the Patreon in the link tree, either on my Best Show Ever Twitter or my Best Show Ever Instagram or on my Instagram. $4 a month and you can become a member. You can support the podcast and also get some bonus content on there that I'm uploading weekly. You'll also get the episodes a day before everyone else. So nanny boo boo, you know. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you don't mind leaving a comment, that really helps out. If you don't mind leaving a review, that really helps out. If you subscribe to the YouTubes right there, I'm pretty sure it's right there. That's super helpful. And until next time, guys, have a great show.